Welcome to JSTL JSP Standard Tag Library Part 1 webinar. So this is what we are going to talk about. We are going to talk about what is and why JSTL, and we are going to talk about functional areas of JSTL. We are going to actually cover the first two topics, core tags and database access tags, and the rest of them will be covered in a different presentation. So what is and why JSTL? So JSTL is a standard set of tag libraries, and it actually provides a core functionality that are common to many web applications, including iterations and conditionals, and XML access, and database access, and internationalized formatting. So these four areas are considered to be the most common to many applications, JSP applications, and JSTL captures standard tags in these areas. So why use JSTL? Because it's standardized, and because it's provided by the platform itself. You don't have to write them yourself. And basically, you are going to learn and use a single standard set of tag libraries that are provided by the platform, and that's a good thing. And vendors are likely to provide optimized implementations of these tags. And your portability is also guaranteed because, again, these are standardized tags, common to all Java EE platforms. Okay, so these are JSTL tag libraries, 4 areas, and also functions at the end. So core, XML, internationalization, and database access, and functions. So we are going to go over each of these in a bit more detail today and next week. Okay, so let's talk about the tag libraries. So in order to use core tags or XML tags, internationalization tags, database tags, and functions, you have to actually provide a tag live. So use this syntax. This is for XML. This is for internationalization format, and this is the database access, and these are for functions. Okay, so let's talk about core tags. So core tag types actually provide multiple functions, variable support, and conditionals, and iterations. So let's talk about each of these in a bit more detail. So this is a continuation of core tags, URL management, and also general purpose tags. Okay, so let's start with the C tag. C tag is used to set the value of expression language variable or the property of expression language variable with a var attribute. And you can actually specify the scope as well as an attribute. And the types of scope, as we learned before, includes page scope, request scope, session scope, and application scope. And if the variable does not exist already in that scope object, then the variable will be created, and the object will be created and saved into that variable in that scope object. Okay, so you can actually set variables in two different ways. You can use the value attribute at the end. So this is a syntax. So here, C:set. This is the name of the variable. I'm creating this variable foo in scope, session scope, and this is the value I want to set. Okay, so this value could be expression language. So here I can actually pick up the book ID parameter value, and then that's the value that will be set with a book ID as attribute name in the scope object. Or you can have the value inside of opening and ending tag of cset. Variables can also be set with JSP code fragment, and we're going to see that example in the next slide. So here we are actually setting the value of expression or value of the string into, in this case, foo variable, right? But these things could be fragment, JSP fragment. That's actually what we are talking about. Okay, so let's see example of this. So in this case, we are setting a variable called a customer table into application scope, and what gets saved into customer table is this fragment. Okay, so this is a JSP fragment. Okay, so that's what I meant. The content between CSET and opening CSET and ending CSET tag is this content. Okay, so once you have saved this JSP fragment into customer table, okay, and then you can actually use that variable in cout value attribute. Okay. So this is the case that we are displaying customer table. So what it does is that it's going to actually evaluate this, okay, JSP fragment, and then we'll use to display. Okay, and in this case, escape XML is false. Oh, okay, in both cases, XML is oh, okay, so this is actually calling setJSP first time, and this is actually calling the second time. So when we actually display that the page, this is what actually gets displayed. Okay, all right, so let's try that. Okay, so this is a JSTL sample application. So that is provided by the as part of the hands-on lab, or you can create one from samples of NetBeans. So let's just run this application. Okay, so this is what gets displayed. So let's click general purpose tags. So we are actually testing the cout. So let's click this one. So you get the list of the people, and then you get yeah, so this is the case that you are displaying. This is escape XML equals true, and this is the case that escape XML is false. Okay, so in this case, so I'm going to explain this escape XML in the following slide. So let's take a look at the code. Code in this case is here we are using the table HTML element, and for each customer, so this is the attribute in the scope object, and for each customer we are using for each, and we are displaying their last name, phone number, and phone cell, and okay, now this is the example of escape XML. So here we have set this one as reader object, and this is also reader object, reader 2, and we are displaying each of these reader object using, one is actually escape true, escape XML is true, okay, which is a default, and if you want to have escape XML is false, that what gets displayed is, oops. So this is the case that escape XML is false. Is going to take the h1 element and actually use as a HTML tag, and this is the case that it is actually to true. So basically, these symbols are going to be converted into escape code, and so that's what gets displayed. Okay, so let's actually get, oh, so I was going to actually show you the next example. Next example is this. So here we are actually setting, let's actually take a look at the code here first. So this is the one that we have seen in the slide. We are setting this JSP fragment into customer variable in application scope. Okay, so we set that up, so we're going to actually execute that, and then once we have customer table variable is set with that JSP fragment, then we can display the customer table So you can see customer table is evaluated and then gets displayed. Okay, so if you see the code, if you see this code, basically what we are saying is we are just displaying customer table variable, okay, which is JSP fragment, and that gets evaluated here. Okay, moving forward. Okay, so variable support, you can remove a variable from the scope object. So if you want to remove cart variable from session scope object, then you can use cdemove. Okay, so cout is something that we have seen. So it evaluates an expression and outputs the result of that evaluation to the current JSP writer object. So if the result of the evaluation is reader object, data is read from the reader object and then written to current JSP writer object. Okay, so the syntax, as we have seen, is c:\out and the value, and then you can specify escape XML, either true or false. Default is true, and you can also set the default value as well. So if escape XML is true, then escape character conversion. So we'd like to talk about that escape XML one more time in a few minutes. Okay, so this is the case that for each customer, yeah, so this is something that we have actually seen. So we display the last name, phone number, and phone cell, and you know, the yeah, and also we can set the font for whatever being displayed. Okay, so this is what gets displayed. If you have seen that example. Okay, escape XML attribute. So by default, the value of escape XML attribute of the cout tag is true. So the default value, the behavior, meaning when it is set to true, then the special characters like this, less than and greater than sign, will be converted into their corresponding character encode, character entity codes, and then they will be displayed as they are. Okay, in the page. Okay. So sometimes you want to actually set it to false. Okay, so default is true, and sometimes you want to set it to false because some advanced users wants to use HTML tags for formatting, such as line breaks or bulleted listings. Okay, so if you actually set it to false, okay, so example is, let me actually show the example one more time. So this is the case. So this is the case that you are setting escape XML false. Okay, so the conversion doesn't happen. Okay, so it will be actually taken as HTML tags. If it is set to true, then the conversion happens. So that will not be actually interpreted as HTML tags. Okay, okay, moving forward. Conditional tags. So we have if, and we also have choose. Choose is like you know, the if and else. Okay. So let's see an example of if and test. So in this case, what we want to do is for each customer in customers collection object, we check whether the country of address of the customer is USA or not, and if that's the case, then we are going to display the customer. So only the customers whose address country property is USA is going to be displayed in this loop. So this is if and else. So it's like a choose and when. So in this case, for each customer, we want to set the font to a different color. Okay, so if it is the if customer's country is USA, we want to set the font color to blue. If the country is Canada, we want to set it to red, and rest of them we want to set to green. Okay, so we are basically using choose and when and otherwise to set the font, and then we display customer with that font. Okay. All right, so let's try that. So this is a conditional, so let's take a look at conditional tags. So this is a simple conditional. Yeah, so this is the case that we are displaying only customers whose address is in USA. So if you take a look at the code, you can see, we are actually checking customer address is USA. Okay. And this is the case again, choose. Okay, so here, for Canada, we are displaying into red. For USA, it's going to display in blue. Okay, rest of them should be green. Okay, so we have only USA and Canada, looks like. And this is a custom logic. Okay, so yeah, this is again similar example. We are setting the font, starting font, either blue or green. Okay, moving forward. So this is for each. You have already seen for each tag. So allows you to iterate over collection object. So items and var is actually current item. Items representing collection of object. You can also have a var status variable, and the begin and end and step. You can also set those things. Okay, and the collection type that are supported are all collection or map. So in this case, so this is an example where you already have seen it. So this is the items is representing collection object, customer's collection object, and this is var is actually current object, and then we are just displaying the customer. And simple range. So in this case, we are starting from 1 and we are ending to 10, and the var, each of those numbers will be represented as I. So when you display I like this and then dot, this is what you get. And this is the case of data types coded. So here, init array is the int array, and this is a string array. And this is enumeration, this is the number map, and here you can display the key and value, and here this is the token. So this is the list of tokens separated by comma, and then you can display each of those tokens. Okay, so this is what gets displayed. Okay, so let's try those things. So we try iterator. This. Okay, it's for each, and the range. Okay, and data type. So here we display, each of those different data types. Iteration status. You can also actually display iteration status like index count, and whether it is a first or last. Okay, so let's see that code using the slide. Yeah, so this is for each with the status, var status. So the status, you can actually display index, how many there are, and the last, the current. So in this case, when you call the current, which is current customer, and you can specify the properties of that current variable, and whether it is a first or last. Okay. And here we are actually using number here, step 5, var status. So yeah, so it's actually testing whether it is a first or not, and then we just say begin and end and step, and this is what gets displayed. Okay, so for token, so we have seen that example as well. So here you can specify delimiter. In this case, it's a comma. Import. So it's actually providing more generic way of accessing URL-based resources rather than using JSP include. Okay, so it does support both absolute URL or relative URL. So if you're using relative URL, it's accessing resources inside the same web application. You can also have a C param tag, okay, as a child element, and it works like a JSP param. So when you are accessing that URL, you can actually specify param by using C param. Okay, so in this case, so here I'm accessing this CNN RSS. Okay, And I can also specify whenever I'm actually going to JSP, header JSP in this case, I can also specify the params. So in this case, basically those params. Okay, so this is param key and this is the value, param key and value. Those things are tagged into the JSP, the URL. And URL rewriting, so used for URL generation. So we have seen this case in the session tracking. So CURL is actually used for the URL rewriting. It's a lot more convenient. So used for URL generation, scriptlet code is often used to construct URLs that pass parameters to the pages and can get messy very quickly. So instead of actually writing Java code to do URL rewriting, you can just use a CURL and it will do automatic URL rewriting for you. Okay, and it does take the param subtext as well. Okay, so this is a case. So basically I'm asking the JSP, the servlet container to perform automatic URL rewriting for me. So this is the URL and this is the JSP page, and then I can also set the parameters. Okay, so in this case, it's going to be hello.jsp page, and again, these are the params, set of params that you can set. Okay, so this is another example of URL rewriting. Okay, so this is the URL base, and yeah, so let me actually show you what it means here. So this is the case that cookie is enabled. Okay, so you don't see any URL here. It doesn't actually have any session information. But when the cookie is disabled, then that's where URL rewriting kicks in, and you can see URL is now containing the session cookie information, session ID information. Okay, redirection sends HTTP redirect to the client. It takes the cparam subtags as well. Okay, so that is it. So let's try those things a bit. Okay, so yeah, import tags. So this is the absolute case. Looks like we don't have the absolute JSP. So let's try relative. Okay, so relative works. So absolute, the reason it doesn't work is maybe we don't have this. Okay, so let me see whether in fact there is any URL of this. If it doesn't, it's there. So why is actually causing 4.4? Let's try this. Alright, so I'm not sure why it's actually not working. Alright, so this is absolute FTP. So you got the JSP page, and if you take a look at the code, yeah, so we are using FTP URL syntax. Okay, and encode string expose absolute. Yeah, so this is the param case. So let's try param case. Yeah, I guess that's the same issue that we have. Oh, okay, so we don't have any the localhost foo, that's why. Okay. I guess that's the same reason over that. Okay, so moving forward. Database access tags. So, basically you can perform SQL operation inside your JSP page using the SQL tags, but it's not really good practice. You do not want to perform your database access inside your JSP page, so it's rarely used. Okay, so data source. All DB actions operate on a data source, and different ways to access data source. So you can have data source, and then you can specify the drivers and URL, those attributes, or you can actually have data source expression. So this is an example. So here we are performing database operation. So here data source is example, and here we are performing update. Okay, so here we are actually creating a table, and here we are updating the count, so you're actually performing insertion. Okay, and this one is for performing query operation. Okay, and this is what gets done. So let's try that. Database SQL text. So yeah, we did that, and I think you have to actually pay app and submit first, and then you can query operation. So yeah, iteration over each row of the results. So if you actually take a look at the code, we are basically performing the so we set the data source, and then we are performing, in this case, update. So we create a table, and then we are just inserting into the table, and then we perform the query operation. Okay, so that's